I think we're living through one of the greatest migrations in history, not of people, but of belief. Picture this. For decades, the world saw the U.S. dollar as a lighthouse of value. Nations hoarded it, economies tied themselves to it, and everyone believed it would never waver. But now, look around. What do you see? Central banks are quietly buying gold instead of dollars. Why? Because gold doesn't lie. I once worked with a fund manager who'd been in the business for over 30 years. He told me, when people stop believing in promises, they look for something they can hold. And that's what gold is. No promises, no signatures, just time proving its worth. Don't you ever feel like today's financial system is a skyscraper built on sand? Every time the government prints more money, they don't create wealth, they dilute your faith in what's in your wallet. That's why nations are returning to gold, not because they love metal, but because they fear losing trust. The world is slowly walking away from the dollar standard. But deeper than that, it's a return to truth, moving away from numbers created by keystrokes back toward things that hold real, tangible value. And the question I want you to think about is this. While the world is searching for trust in real value, what are you putting your faith in? Now imagine this. One morning, you walk into your favorite coffee shop. Everything looks the same. The smell, the light, the quiet hum of conversation. But your coffee costs $2 more. You frown, shrug, and think, well, that's inflation. But have you ever stopped to ask, why does everything keep getting more expensive, even when you're working just as hard? An economist once told me, inflation isn't about prices going up, it's about trust going down. Every time the government prints money to save the economy, they're really shortening the lifespan of the dollar in your pocket. You don't see your money disappear, you just feel its power fading day by day. I've seen people save diligently for 20 years, only to realize their hard-earned money can no longer buy what they dreamed of. Not because they did anything wrong, but because they put their faith in a system built to print more when it panics. Financial crises never start with a bang. They start with silence, the silence of people who stop asking questions. Maybe it's time we all ask, is the money I'm earning truly holding its value? Or am I just trading my time for numbers that mean less each year? Because in a world where trust can be printed, the ones who understand real value are the only ones who are truly free. Do you remember the last time you felt uneasy about your financial future? Maybe when you read headlines about a market crash or when your bills climbed even though you spent the same. I've met so many people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, hard-working, disciplined, responsible, who thought saving and working harder guaranteed safety. But then they realized their life's effort was being eaten away by something invisible, inflation and the erosion of faith in the system. A former Wall Street mentor once told me, "The financial system is like a grand banquet, but that meal is paid for with the time of working people." He was right. When money loses value, people don't just lose purchasing power, they lose the belief that their effort still matters. So let me ask you this. If prices rose 20% tomorrow, what would you feel? Anger, fear, or curiosity? Because here's the truth, you can't control markets, but you can control your mindset. Once you understand how money really works, you stop being a pawn in the game. You begin to see the difference between money and true value, between numbers in an account and what you actually own, your mind, your skills, your ability to adapt. The world will always change, but those who understand the essence of value will never truly lose. I once met a man in San Diego in his early 40s. He used to drive a luxury car, lived in an ocean view condo, and thought he was doing fine. Then the pandemic hit, inflation surged, his job vanished, and prices doubled. He looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. I realized I wasn't rich. I was just spending money from the future. That line stayed with me for years. How many of us live like that, relying on credit cards, loans, or the belief that someone will save us? But no one's coming. In finance, the world doesn't reward innocence. It rewards understanding. That's why I always tell my students, don't chase money, chase value. Gold, real estate, stocks, they're just tools. The most valuable thing you can have is a mind that creates real worth. Truly wealthy people don't hunt for gold. They build their own minds using knowledge, relationships, and consistency. Think about it. If everything you owned disappeared tomorrow, what would remain? If your answer is, my ability to create value, then congratulations. You're already financially free, even if your bank account isn't huge yet. Because freedom doesn't come from what you hold. It comes from your belief in yourself, that no matter how the world shifts, you can start again and rise. I remember speaking at an event in Boston when a woman in her 50s stood up and asked me, "Peter, how can I trust anything anymore? I've seen the dollar lose value, stocks collapse, banks wobble. What should I believe in?" I smiled and said, "Believe in what can't be printed." Because you see, governments can print money, but they can't print trust, integrity, or personal discipline. We're living in an era where numbers no longer mean what they used to. When everything can be multiplied with a click, people forget that real value has to be built, not coded. That's why gold, land, and human skills endure, because they can't be copied. So ask yourself, what are you investing in? Stocks? Crypto? Or in yourself, the one who decides, adapts, and leads? The wealthiest people I've met all share one trait. They invest most in their thinking, not in the market. They know that whether gold rises or the dollar falls, wisdom, clarity, and resilience are currencies that never depreciate. So instead of fearing the next crisis, prepare for it. Read, learn, observe. Because crises don't come to destroy you. They come to test whether you truly deserve the financial freedom you dream of. Once, in a private workshop with entrepreneurs in New York, I asked them, if the banking system shut down for a week tomorrow, what would happen to you? The room went silent. Some laughed nervously, others looked down. Finally, one man whispered, "I'd panic. All my money's there." That answer summed up an entire generation. We've placed blind faith in things we don't control. But the truth is, what breaks people isn't losing money. It's losing control. Every time the market shakes or the news screams financial collapse, most people react with fear, not understanding. They sell in panic, withdraw, follow the crowd, because they never learned how to manage their emotions around money. A mentor once told me, when the market panics, the calm ones make the most. That's not luck. That's mental discipline. Remember this. Money is just a tool, but self-control is the real asset. If you know what you're doing, fear won't move you. If you know what's truly valuable, numbers won't deceive you. The world may shake, markets may fall, but your ability to stay calm, think clearly, and act wisely, that will always be your gold in every era. I want you to picture this. You're standing on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The waves are rough, the wind is howling, and everything around you feels unsteady. In moments like that, the inexperienced only know how to pray, but those who understand the sea, they grip the wheel tighter. The financial world works the same way. Every crisis is a storm, but the real question isn't how strong the storm is. It's whether you know how to keep your balance. A crisis isn't your enemy. It's a test to see whether you truly understand what you're doing. When markets crash and the headlines turn red, the fearful see the end, the wise see a rebirth. The people who get rich after every crash aren't lucky. They're calm when others lose control. I once knew a young woman who lost nearly everything in 2020. Instead of complaining, she spent the next year learning, studying, investing, financial cycles, and starting over. 3 years later, she didn't just recover, she became more confident and freer than ever. She understood something most people forget. Crises are temporary, character lasts forever. So if you're afraid right now, remember, no one is born knowing how to weather a storm. But anyone can learn to hold the wheel. And once you do, crisis stops being something to fear. It becomes a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and richer from within. I once heard a quote I love: "Money is just the language of belief." Think about it. Gold, dollars, Bitcoin, none of them have intrinsic value. They're valuable only because people agree to believe in them. When belief changes, money changes. Look at the younger generation. They've grown up in a digital world where value lives in data, in code, in blockchain. For them, Bitcoin is digital gold, a symbol of freedom, untied to governments or banks. The older generation, though, still trusts gold, something they can touch, see, and feel. And you know what? Neither is wrong, because the essence of money isn't in the material, it's in collective trust. The only difference is what you choose to believe in and how deeply you understand it. I always tell my students, don't blindly believe in the market. Believe in your own wisdom and discipline. Gold can fall. Bitcoin can swing wildly. But if you have solid knowledge, you won't be shaken. In the end, the truly wealthy aren't the ones who hold the most assets. They're the ones who hold the right beliefs amid chaos. So while the world argues over what real money is, take a quiet moment to ask yourself, what do I truly believe in? Metal, technology, or my own ability to understand and adapt? Now imagine this. You're standing at a crossroads. One path leads to what everyone says is safe, and the other leads to what you truly understand. Most people choose the first path because it's familiar. They follow advice. Buy this, invest in that, keep your savings here. And they comply. But only a few take the second path, the path of seeking the true nature of value. Today's world changes faster than ever. Technology, money, markets, waves one after another. If you only stay on the surface, you'll be swept away. But if you dive deeper, you'll find the current underneath, the one that never disappears. Real value. I once mentored a tech engineer who said, "I invested in crypto because everyone around me was doing it." When the market crashed, he lost almost everything. But he didn't quit. He learned about finance, crowd psychology, how capital flows. 3 years later, he told me, "I realized the best investment isn't in assets. It's in understanding what you invest in." And that's the key. When you understand, you're no longer driven by headlines or crowds. You don't have to predict the future. You build it with your knowledge, because the world will always change. But those who understand the nature of value will always stand firm, no matter how many times the wind shifts. I once sat with an older businessman in Chicago. He'd lived through 3 recessions, gone bankrupt twice, and nearly lost everything. When I asked him, "What helped you get back up every time?" he smiled and said, "Because I never invested in assets. I invested in myself." That moment hit me deeply. The financial system can collapse, but financial mindset never does. You can lose money, a job, even your reputation. But if you still have the ability to think, learn, and adapt, you can rebuild everything. We live in an age where everything can change overnight. Technology replaces jobs. Digital money disrupts banks. Artificial intelligence rewrites the economy. But there's one thing no machine can ever take from you: your intellect and your resilience. I've met people who lost everything, yet never lost faith in themselves. They read, learned new skills, trained their strategic thinking, and started over. 6 months, a year later, they didn't just recover, they became stronger, freer, and more grounded in real value. So if you're in a hard season right now, remember this: real wealth isn't in your bank account, it's in your mind and heart. someone with the right financial mindset can start again from zero, and this time build something stronger than ever. I once said during a talk in San Francisco, "A crisis doesn't kill your dream, it just reveals whether you truly believe in it." The room went quiet. Then a young man raised his hand and asked, "What if I still believe, but everything around me is falling apart?" I looked at him and said, "Then keep believing, because that's when your dream begins to truly test you." When the market's booming, everyone's confident. When gold, stocks, or real estate are all rising, everyone feels smart. But when the crash comes, when screens turn red and panic spreads, that's when character and conviction speak the loudest. I've seen people start again from zero. No capital, no privilege, just the faith that I'm not done yet. And somehow that faith became their greatest asset. Faith is like gravity. You can't see it, but it keeps you from drifting away in chaos. When you believe in real value, when you trust your path, every outside storm becomes just another test. Because in the end, money can vanish, assets can dissolve, but faith and knowledge, the two things no one can steal, will always carry you forward. And sometimes, in the darkest moments of your life, you might just find the light of a brand new beginning.